absolute magician. He set up for...
We might have a false start, ladies and gentlemen. All right, false start. Offense, whatever Steve's number was, 5-yard penalty, first down.
I was going to say, Steve is right now trying to catch Syracuse for the most penalties in this weekend on a Syracuse-related
That is
show.
tough.
Uh,
that is what we call very tough.
Yeah, it definitely is. But welcome to Troy Nunes is an Absolute Live Cast. Our fearless leader and producer, Steve Haller, is currently dealing with some audio issues on his end. I'm Andy Pregler. He's Christian DeGuzman. We are here to talk all things Syracuse sports once again after the Orange defeated the Albany Great Danes in football, not the other thing that they usually play Albany in every year. 62-24. We were a touchdown away from a very nice ending. Instead, we'll just have to deal with a very good ending as the Orange defeated a pretty solid FCS team. Not the best we've seen come in, cough, cough, Villanova. Definitely not the worst, cough, cough, Stony Brook. So there's a lot to get to in this game. I think some of the big things that we should just hit right off of the bat. Christian, you were at the game. You were able to view it from the press box. One of the big takeaways that is going to impact the Orange for multiple weeks is the injury to Luke Benson. We don't know how severe it is. We know it's some kind of lower body injury. He was immediately taken out of the game, immediately put into street clothes. He was given crutches, but no one really saw him using them. I'm curious if there was any other takeaways or any other things that you saw throughout his play before he got hurt that might, freak Orange fans out or might give them some optimism.
Both. Because when Benson was on the field, especially with Taj not playing in the game due to undisclosed reasons, Benson took over for him as basically the receiver who was the threat in the middle of the field. And I can get to this later in the show. Kind of weird to start off on a downer, but we'll get to it later. But that's important for Syracuse. The other thing that we all figured out, breaking news to everyone who didn't know, Sean Tucker is really good at football. Wow, amazing. Imagine what happened if he carried the ball at all within the last 21 minutes of the Rutgers game.
It is continuing to be a frustrating point, and I have definitively decided that the Rutgers game is going to be what we take away from this season, no matter what. I know Steve half-heartedly made the joke in his football preview series that we'd lose Rutgers and still go 6-6. There's a really good chance that Syracuse does go 6-6 with how weak the ACC is, and we'll get to that in a little bit.
We will get to that.
Yeah, but it becomes more frustrating because I hope Steve gets his audio fixed soon, because one of the big takeaways from this game was that, yes, Sean Tucker is good. And for those that want to criticize and say, but it was Albany, you need to go watch the tape, because the offensive line was bad. Not necessarily in the holistic standpoint of this offensive line was as bad as we've seen it in past years, but the offensive line was definitively in what John is now calling lab games. They were doing a lot of mixing and matching. And Christian, I'm just intrigued. We in the Nunes Slack, while we were all messaging each other, were very confused by what was going on with the offensive line. It took us a while to kind of figure out what they were trying to do. I'm curious for your perspective if that was kind of shared in the press box once Service came out. You can recognize him instantly because of the hair when he lined up under center instead of out wide.
Yeah, there was definitely a couple of rumblings. And then you saw Sean Tucker have his best success to the left, where no changes happened because Matthew Bergeron and Chris Bleich were all on the left. And Mark Herzlich in the broadcasting booth pointed that out as well, that it's all been Bleich, it's all been Bergeron pretty much that entire game, and they were the best people pretty much on the line. Disregard the fact that both Bleich and Bergeron were both the highest graded run blockers. Both only scored a 63 and 62. Bleich 63 and Matthew Bergeron is 62 in the run blocking on PFF. And again, just to remind everyone, PFF's average grade is a 60. So not that great. They were the only two starting offensive linemen to grade above an average score on Pro Football Focus in run blocking, and that was barely above average. So you can only imagine what that meant when the rest of the offensive line wasn't as good. And you started seeing it because they were they kept Aaron Service at center, and again he hasn't played in center since again either his freshman or sophomore year. I forget when he moved over to tackle, but it was junior year he moved over to tackle. Thanks, Steve. Uh, so so it's been a while since he's played center. We saw a couple of bad snaps. That was interesting for a second in the first quarter. And then you saw the rotation of Darius Tisdale, Dakota Davis, and for some reason Carlos Vettorello at tackle as well, which was interesting enough to say the least. And it wasn't great, let's say, from the right side of the line and from Service at center at times.
Are you going for the Understatement of the Year award? And I think my audio is live, so. Um,
um, I think I am, Steve. Now that we have Steve here, he can tell us why the right side of the line was, in understated words, not ideal.
why? I have no fucking clue. There's
That's
no
great.
like, there were a lot of things that happened. I'll break them down in much pain and derision on Wednesday. But the Sean Tucker looked like a god in spite of not phenomenal blocking in front of him. I think you touched on it. Your audio cut out for me for a minute a second ago, but I think I've got everything straightened out. However, the left side of the line looked great. Like Bleish and Bergeron they're good. They're good at what they do. Service, I don't know if that experiment was just to get him snaps there and see how he looked, but it wasn't great. I trust Mike Schmidt that he knows what he's doing. I don't know what he was doing here. Like, he knows how to coach an offensive line. I have no idea what or how or why he was playing musical chairs on that right side. I mean, I get it because none of the musical chairs looked great, but the fact that there's not somebody behind that first line that can push and move somebody up and out of that situation, move even without Dakota Davis, who rotated in, finally getting back from injury. Good to see him get some reps. He did look pretty solid there. Unfortunately, around him was at the time either Service at center and Tisdale or Vettorello at tackle, none of which looked ideal. So I don't know how Davis looked on the PFF grades, but he passed the eye test to me. So
Davis actually was pretty low on PFF grades, 50 on run block, 56.8 on pass block.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough.
See, that for me too, the problem, and I'll get to it more when I go into detail and actually can rewatch it, but the big problem for me was because they were playing musical chairs, trying to figure out who was in what series and why and when and where. So you'd look at the line one series and it was, literally it started with Vettorello at tackle, Service at center, and Tisdale at guard, I believe. Or
yeah, Tisdale at guard.
And then
Tisdale.
the next series, Davis came in, Tisdale went to tackle. I was like, well, okay, it was going to get weird. So we're here to embrace the weird, as we always do. However, we should probably, I don't want to say shelf the criticism, but shelf the specific player criticism outside of Tisdale, who got, blown up numerous times again. And
Yeah, Steve, what's we're going to play a Liberty team that we can't lose to.
Yes.
Point blank. If Syracuse loses the Liberty, even with as bad as the ACC is, getting to 4 wins is going to be a tough ask of any team, just because of how crazy and chaotic everything is. 3 is much more manageable. So you need that Liberty game, and you don't want to have somebody getting blown up every single play, especially if you're going to commit to the passing game. Is there a light at the end of the tunnel here? Like, is it going to be as simple, like Davis is going to come in and fix everything? Or are we potentially looking at a longer, more complicated solution than that?
I'm hesitant to say he's going to fix everything, but in all honesty, when I was grading out against Rutgers, it seemed obvious that the weak link was Tisdale at guard. and I assumed Davis would be a 1-for-1 swap there. I think things get weird when this week he was coming off injury. I think if he's getting the full reps there, no matter where it ends up being, he should, knock on wood, look better than what we've seen. So that should improve the line play to a degree. That said, against Liberty, I don't know what we're going to see for a defensive front. It's going to be interesting to see what they throw at us. I'm confident that the defense will do their job. I'm curious if the offense will do their job.
It was funny looking at the PFF stats to also see that Tisdale got the highest run blocking grade at an 87, but that's mainly because the right side of the line was the freight train for Sean Tucker to run through on the 2 screen plays that went for 50-plus yards. So that probably has a lot to do with it as well.
And what did he? Do you have them up?
The PFF grades?
Yeah.
Yes.
What did he grade out for pass?
For pass block, again, 87.0 in run block. And pass block, I should say, for Tisdale. Yeah. But again, I'm assuming a large part of that is because of the Sean Tucker screens. Because Tucker had a 92.3 in pass.
Yeah, that was good. He was good. How about service? Where did he slot out?
77.7 in pass block, 58.9 in run block.
Okay, I don't quite agree with that, but we'll go with it.
Well, again, I think to your point, and this leads us wonderfully into our next and probably the topic of conversation that everybody wants us to talk about and wants to get involved in is the quarterback play.
Come on, we got to bury the lead more than this.
Oh, don't worry, Steve. We're gonna get to it in a second. This all ties together. There was one quarterback who was actually taking shots down the field and connecting. There was another quarterback that needed those screen plays and needed those short routes in order to keep things moving. And ironically, the one who could sit back in the pocket and buy himself time was Tommy DeVito, and the one who needed the short plays and needed the screens to bail him out was Garrett Schrader. And I think that's to Christian, to your point, you're making, like, those screens were fantastic by everybody on the offensive line, and Sean Tucker, who basically, as soon as the ball was in Tucker's hands, had to go ahead to just run forward and crush every smaller Albany player in front of them. So I could imagine how that might skew a lot of the grades versus the true pass protection that we saw. I don't think we talked about this enough, but on that beautiful deep ball that Tommy threw, he got absolutely smacked on that play. Somebody came off the edge and he did it. And that was what I took away as the most impressive part of that, is that that's not a throw that Tommy makes last year. He does not stand in the pocket that long. He is not willing to take the contact. This game he was, and hopefully that's a good sign of things to come, because I think, based off of what we saw with this offensive line, based off of what we saw in the quarterback play, the only person who is going to be able to stir this offense outside of Sean Tucker is probably Tommy DeVito. And part of that is an indictment on Garrett Schrader's ability to throw the ball beyond 10 yards. The other part of it is the reality that if you're going to have happy feet and want to run every time, that this offense is going to stall out, because the offensive line is probably going to have that happen to you more times than not, and Tommy is willing to look and try to make a play in the pocket far more often than Schrader is. So Christian, I know you're chomping at the bit to jump into this one.
I didn't think we'd find a quarterback who had slower decision-making time than DeVito, but it feels like we found it in Schrader. I almost made Andy choke. Because we've talked a lot about Tommy's decision-making time, especially with him not moving off his first reads. Granted, Garrett goes through his reads a bit faster. However, he takes way too long to decide he wants to throw the ball, and by that time, the offensive line is just not good enough. Pretty much any offensive line, you could say, is not good enough to keep a quarterback up that long in the pocket, even against FCS opponents. So the thing is that Schrader, because the way that Schrader is built as a quarterback, he's also not going to stand behind the line of scrimmage also and look for more options before deciding to run. As soon as he sees that the pocket is collapsing too quickly, he's going to bolt forward. And we've seen enough times already with Tommy that he's willing to keep the play alive behind the line of scrimmage for just that fraction of a second longer before he decides to bolt. And I think that's big as well. And the other thing, especially with the way that this offense is run this year, and we saw with Tommy, there's a lot of RPO that's built into this offense. And I don't really remember seeing Garrett running a ton of RPO, if any RPO plays, against Albany. And the RPO is really, really effective. We saw it against Ohio. We saw a couple of RPOs against Albany that were really, really good as well from Tommy. And it adds such a dynamic influence to the game, especially when you can fake it out with Tucker and then Tommy rushes up the field for 10 yards. And that's exactly what you want that RPO to do.
And don't forget about it. Don't forget about the effectiveness of it against Rutgers. Oh wait.
I mean, against Rutgers, it was just so effective the 2 times that Syracuse ran it. I mean, it was just unbelievable how many RPOs they ran, especially in the fourth quarter. Oh God, lovely. If you can't tell, we're being sarcastic, because we'll get to this later because John wrote a brilliant article on it this morning about what next. But going back to the question at hand, Tommy versus Garrett, there's not much, unless Garrett has the game of his absolute life against Liberty, assuming that there's going to be another predetermined plan to get Garrett some snaps against Liberty, then this is Tommy's job, and there's not much that's going to remove him from this job when the start of ACC play rolls around.
Yeah, and the biggest thing for me during that, I mean, we've been quoting PFF numbers. Tommy was in his deep throws. He had 5, 6, 7 deep attempts, 92% or 92.5 grade deep left, 77.8 deep right, 60 in the middle, 59.3 on his one attempt across the middle. So overall, he's connecting on a number of those plays, including the one deep ball to Damian Alford, which was just a thing of beauty. And I think we're all joining the John Casillo train of get him the hell on the field, because he needs
Gerard
to be.
Johnson, the person who started the season as the opposite outside wide receiver to Anthony Quealy?
Johnson caught passes for Schrader, but apparently he drops everything DeVito throws at him. So Courtney Jackson caught balls, which was nice to see.
Courtney Jackson held on to balls. That was an amazing sight to see.
Yeah. So 7 attempts from DeVito, grading somewhere around, pretty solid, 78 plus. For Schrader, he had 9 attempts. All of them were to the center or right. And if you want to take a wild stab at what the high point of his grading was, I'll let you know it wasn't great. Take a wild toss out there for what he graded out for deep throws at.
I'll give him a 50, since that seems to be where the median.
That's well below the Mendoza line. Yeah, that's fine.
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm gonna go 50 as well.
You're 10 plus too high.
Oh, wonderful! Congratulations.
Yeah, his 3 attempts. His 3 attempts deep right, 39.2. 3 attempts deep center, 33.8. So for anyone who doesn't follow the PFF stuff, the deep, quote unquote, deep throws, there's deep, intermediate, and short, and then behind line of scrimmage. Short, you're looking at 1 to 5 yards. Intermediate, I believe, is like 10-ish in that ballpark.
Short is 0 to 10. Medium is 10 to 19.
Okay.
And deep is 20 plus.
So anything 20 plus, Garrett was 0 for 6 with a pick, which tracks I saw.
That pick also was just doomed from the start.
Oh yeah.
Like I saw a couple of people on Twitter saying like, yeah, that was the right read, but like he threw it right at the guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a weird situation, and it's not a great one for him when, like, I get he has that dynamism of his feet, but for one, I mean, you guys know I've been tooting the horn of DeVito can run for the last year and a half when everybody was still on the Dungy train. I feel, and I still stand by the fact that DeVito might be a better runner than Eric Dungey. He just might be a worse decision maker than Eric Dungey when it comes to when to run.
That's incredible that someone can be a worse decision maker than Dungey in terms of the running game.
Oh yeah, no, it's really just weird. Because if you watch this year, anytime he's taking off on an RPO, anytime he's taking off on a designed run, he looks fine. It's just he has a problem when he has to make the decision to run. Like when the pocket collapses and he has to think of like, do I throw it away? Do I run? What do I do? That's where his issue comes in. It's not when he knows he has an option to run. And he looks good.
Yeah, it's like I said earlier, DeVito wants to stay behind the line of scrimmage and throw the ball if he can.
So,
yeah.
And he looked better throwing the ball.
Yeah, well, I think that's what we always saw, too, in 5 and 7 season with DeVito, was a lot of those designed running plays for him worked really well. It was just a matter of you got to the point where you worried about his health long-term on those runs, and he tends to do the same thing that Dungey and Schrader do, which is he looks for the contact instead of he does the Josh Allen decision of, okay, I could look for the contact. Instead, I'm going to just slide away and I'm going to live to fight another day. Doesn't mean you don't make bad decisions other places in the football field. It just in that one specific area, you got to get to a point where you realize that you can do more damage the next play than trying to get a single yard on that play and knock yourself out for the rest of the season. And that's what I really want to see more of for Dungey, because I think what was
not for
from
Dungey.
DeVito, because I think what we're going to see more with this RPO game are designed DeVito runs, because eventually you will get to the point where people are going to key in on Sean Tucker. They're going to realize that the offensive line might not be able to hold long enough for deep throws, and you're going to need to have another weapon. And we kind of talked about it with Alford a bit. We talked about it pre-show, but like I think it bears repeating here. There with Benson being out, there's not a ton of other weapons that we can rely on for the Syracuse offense. It really does become ride Sean Tucker, get the ball to Taj Harris. There is no step 3. Those are your 2 options. And DeVito being smart with his decisions to run the ball gives you that third option where this is not a Syracuse offense that's going to win 10 games. That might be good enough for a Syracuse offense to get you 6 wins.
What was the big thing we talked about in 2019 is that DeVito was too happy throwing to the sidelines. And it was so important to have, especially this year, having Taj Harris as an option in the middle, having him in the slot as an option in the middle to throw to. With Harris out, especially with also Benson out, because he was that option in the middle, you're kind of stuck on the sidelines. And Tommy's sideline throws do leave a lot to be desired. I mean, he had that one good throw against Alford, but more times often than not, his sideline throws are questionable at times. You saw that a lot in the Rutgers games when he was trying to find Queeley on the sidelines late in the game in those second half drives that we will forget to talk about because we do not want to talk about them. So the fact that he has an option over the middle to Harris is so important. And the fact that no one else has made themselves available to be an option over the middle is kind of worrying. And so that's where you actually need someone like Courtney Jackson to step up as well to be an option over the middle, especially if you're not going to have routes for Queeley or Alford to be middle threats.
And you kind of brought it forward. Like, we were banging the drum to get Taj in that slot.
Mm-hmm.
We got him in the slot. In order to make that effective, like I'm glad they answered and listened to us and brought Taj to the slot. Problem is, you still got to get him the ball in the slot. You can't just put him there. Like, that doesn't do anything. So that will be a conundrum against Liberty of, like, well, assuming he's back on the field, because I still don't think anybody knows why he's out.
For Taj, because he's tweeting it.
Yeah.
I mean, did he have did he have any targets after that Tucker touchdown against Rutgers? Because I felt like every single target that Tommy threw to was Queeley or Johnson/Alford on the outside.
Yeah, and I think part of that might have been them trying to work the sidelines. Part of that might have just been them keying on Taj and forcing other playmakers.
Why are you trying to keep the sidelines? Especially you had it was a two possession game or one possession game with 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter.
We're talking about a game where it was 4th and 10, it's 7 minutes left, and you're down 2 scores, and they punted. So, clock management and competent play calling in that game, I'm just gonna chalk up as a loss.
I mean, yeah, that's a.
That sounds about right.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's if we can marry what we did this week with the availability of a Taj Harris, and then Rhino actually gets eligible, which God forbid that happens. Like he's still he is still the spiritual leader of this team. If you watch him on the sidelines, he is just
he is. Yeah,
he is everywhere. But I do have hope for Taj coming back soon because, reading the tea leaves, and by tea leaves I mean social media, the main Syracuse football account retweeted him saying, hopefully back next week. So I'm assuming it's not something, the actual, well, never mind. It's Syracuse. I was going to say the actual account wouldn't be, pushing that if it wasn't actually going to be the case. But it's Cuse in social media, and we have seen how well that works over the years. So here we are.
Yeah, I think that the whole thing is definitely very Cuse. Obviously, Albany was not the kind of school or not the program that Syracuse needed to worry about in that regard. We spent a lot of time talking about the offense, and rightly so. They put up a lot of points. Defensively, I don't think we learned anything new.
Hold on.
Don't think
30-second timeout on that. Have we actually given Sean Tucker his due? Because holy shit.
No,
Like
because
we just spent all that time not talking
Yeah.
about Sean Tucker. We
That's
can't switch to
like-
defense without that.
because I think it brings up the question that we're going to answer on this site coming up, because it needs to be answered at this point. Has Sean Tucker enough to deserve 44?
and this is going to be a really dumb cop-out. They need to give him a ball in a game that matters. Like, they didn't give them the ball during the Rutgers game. So I don't know how you can give him 44 if the coaching staff isn't confident enough in a run-based attack in a tight game for it to matter. And, that's a really dumb answer. But it also, goes to the overall frustrations that I think we all have is, Tucker so far to date has racked up incredible numbers in a season that pretty much got written off from the moment it started in Syracuse's case. And this year in 2 games, Ohio was a good one, but clearly the game plan was go vanilla as possible. And Albany, where the game plan was go vanilla as possible. The Rutgers game, I still don't know exactly what happened there. It's some kind of fugue state we all collectively went into.
Do we know what the game plan was for the Rutgers game?
No,
They don't,
and that's
they
why
don't either.
And that's why I need to, before any of the giving Sean Tucker 44 conversations, I feel need to happen. I know we're going to talk about this week. I need to see what they do against Liberty. If Sean Tucker gets 125 yards against Liberty, 2 touchdowns, and we're riding him this year, I think that we can revisit this conversation. The problem that I will have forever with this is that the coaching staff, for whatever goddamn reason, just refuses to give him the ball in games that it matters. And I don't Steve, and I know that we were both on the same page here, but I get that the run blocking is bad, but Tucker made it work with bad run blocking.
Yeah.
So yeah.
There's no reason, even look at the first 2 drives of the Rutgers game, or first 3 drives, before they switched gears and killed all the momentum in the offense. Tucker was running, and Tucker was running well. And I'm not talking how well he ran against Albany, but that functional 4 yards a carry, put them in good field position, put them in a position to call a play to make a manageable 3rd down. It was working, and it was probably could have ground Rutgers to a different pace than what they were playing at. And then we went away from it, and I don't know why. And I get scripts, I get how you do that, but one thing I've noticed over the years is it's almost like Dino and company get a little too tied to what they were planning and what they were scripting, and we talked about it last week. They're 4D chessing their way out of some of this shit, and it's just stick with what works, stick with a simple game plan, hand the guy the ball, let your guys in front figure it out. Like there's a lot of there's not a lot of nuance you need for hand Sean Tucker the ball, zone block, let him make a cutback, because holy crap does that man cutback, like read a cutback perfectly. Which is why a lot of what happened this weekend happened. His ability to pivot on a dime and just change direction, and to just make that single strong cut and go, really, really changed. Like, there were probably 3 or 4 runs that he broke for 10 plus that were, there's a linebacker coming at me, I'm just going to go that way instead of that way. And it worked. And, like, what more do you need? Like, just...
It's amazing that Sean Tucker can do that and not Garrett Schrader.
Yeah. Too soon, man. Too soon.
Yeah. But I think the big thing that we're all impressed about Tucker, obviously, is the consistency that it brings. To me, it's his ability to bounce to the B gap and the C gaps really, really well. Because so much of Syracuse, especially in the past, has been hit the A gap and hit it hard and continue to hit it hard and then hit it hard some more. And then you see Tucker maybe start going for the A gaps and then bouncing around to the outside, and that's where he breaks up his 7-8 yard runs that look pretty dynamic. I think to me, that's the most important part of Tucker, is that he's a really good outside runner and can improvise in the backfield. To when his initial A gap option that he's required to run is not there, he can bounce around to the outside and get those extra yards that he may not deserve if he was just going to stick to running up the middle.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's a really pass blocking aside, which that's the conversation for another day. He's a really intelligent player, and he is exactly what the Syracuse offense needs right now. I would love to see them. Yep, except for the pass blocking. They need to run him to the ground against Liberty. Like, I want to see those first 3 or 4 drives. I want to see RPO based attacks that the primary option is get the ball into his hands. Then, if that doesn't work, if Liberty has shown that they can stop the run consistently, then I'm willing to see some adjustments be made. But Steve, you put it perfectly. Like, I really want to see this coaching staff come out with the game plan of give the ball to Tucker, and if it doesn't work, then adapt. I don't want to see them come out with the game plan of we're going to try to actively avoid running the ball because we know that that's what people want to do, and therefore our game plan is going to be something different.
Right.
Like, at the end of the day, this is blocking and tackling, and it's really hard to tackle Sean Tucker, and you don't need good blocking in order to give him room for success. So when you have those 2 great things there, I don't understand why you don't primarily make that the focus. And then maybe if he rushes for 100 yards this week and Syracuse beats Liberty, I to bring it back to your question, Christian, I think we can talk about him getting 44. I'm just not quite all the way there yet.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think now that we had the Sean Tucker conversation. Defensively, I don't think we learned too much, although it was nice to see some different defensive backs there. We do need to talk about what did happen this week on the defensive side of the ball. Ben LaBrose is no longer a member of this program. He's not in the transfer portal yet. TBD if he ends up there. But Syracuse loses a really big key depth player. He was not starting, even though he was listed as the starter going into the first game of the year, but he was definitely a really good depth player to have at a position where Syracuse could use some depth and competition as, they're trying to replace an NFL player. Christian, I think we saw in this game that there are plenty of defensive backs that we can throw back there, but an injury in a specific spot, like, say, safety, might end up undoing a lot of the good that we've seen so far.
Especially when you see the main position that hasn't been touched by this, the rover, how important it is to have Hannah and Justin Barron rotate in and out of that position. It gives some unique looks to the defense. Now, granted, we really didn't see the safeties get tested. I don't think I even saw the safeties get tested at all against Albany because, again, it's Albany. And the only big play they had was against Deuce Chestnut, who unfortunately just made a freshman mistake that he probably won't make again. Um, so it's unfortunate because this is another game where, yes, you saw safeties, yes, you saw a good amount of them trot out, though we have no idea what any of this means because we can't tell what any of this means because none of them were really tested to the degree that we can tell how much the LeBros um, departure of the program really means. But you have Eric Coley, who's, again, even though he's down the depth chart, still a veteran, still working his way back up the depth chart after the injury. Jason Simmons has proven to be pretty reliable. And then Jahad Carter is here and there. And I don't think, looks here in PFF, Jahad Carter didn't get a snap here in this game, which is interesting. That might be something to look at as well. But the big thing is that, yes, the depth, though, is really, really what's important. And you see a lot of that just around the Syracuse defense is that Tony White loves to play around with his depth and get fresh guys out on the field and give new looks to guys out on the field as well.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting to see how it affects the general feel of the unit. Like you said, Justin Barron and that one stick was just
That was so beautiful.
that was chef's kiss right there.
That was so beautiful.
But yeah, it's a big curveball between what you get from him and what you get from Hannah, and it would have been a similar curveball between LeBros and Simmons. So I don't know. It's gonna be weird to see in the long term how all of this affects the program. I'm glad that last year they were able to, and again, a position that had some departures, but I'm glad they were able to get as much run to as many linebackers as they could, because we've seen that Mikel Jones and Marlo Wax and even Jeff Canton-Arcou are all very, very solid at what they do. We already knew Stephon Thompson was, so that wasn't really much of a mystery. They just
only if they could prove that in coverage. Also, that'd be great.
Well, you know, Mikel Jones can pick off balls, but that's about it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And this all becomes really important because you know what's coming next week. It is Malik Willis and Liberty. The Flames are 3-0 as they trek up to the Carrier Dome for their second time in as many years. They have not played anybody of note. And by that, I mean...
Old Dominion and Troy aren't of note? God, what are you talking about?
And Campbell. Come on. Campbell.
Yeah.
Can't forget about Powerhouse Campbell. Good Lord.
They only beat Troy by a touchdown, which is starting to get into the interesting territory. Malik Willis is the quarterback who tore Syracuse a new one last year. This year, according to Pro Football Focus, he has really kind of focused in on the passing game. In that Troy game, that was where he ran the ball the most. He had 11 designed runs called for him. This past week against Old Dominion, he only had 4, which is to be expected. They're probably trying to protect him for the bigger games down the stretch. So far, the good news, his passing hasn't been great. He was given a 66 grade passing against Troy, 66 against Old Dominion. The problem for Syracuse historically has been with running quarterbacks, and Malik's running grades have been nothing short of fantastic. He's got an 86 run grade on the season, so you know that's pretty good. I can't for sure say that Syracuse is going to come out and spy him, because I don't know if any of the linebackers necessarily have the closing speed or ability to just kind of follow him around. That being said, with the way that this defense has performed this year and the way that they've disguised their pressures, I think that we might see a very different Malik Willis than the one that we saw last year. I don't think he'll have as much success as he's had in past highlights or even last year, which is promising. Yeah.
The thing is, last year he didn't really have a great game either. It was under 200 yards passing. It was 70 or 80 yards rushing, which by his lofty standards, that's not a lot. The reason why Liberty won, the reason why Liberty won that game last year is because the running backs decided to tour the Syracuse defense a new one, and because Syracuse's running defense last year was a hot pile of flaming garbage. And this is where I kind of disagree with you, Andy, because I do think we will see a spy for Willis, and I think it's going to be Michael Jones. And I'm really waiting to see that matchup because I've seen Michael Jones drop back into a spy a lot this year. He did it a lot in Rutgers versus Rutgers against Phaedrel, who is as bad as a passing quarterback he is still also a dual threat pass running quarterback, and it worked pretty well against him. And the fact that Jones had an excellent game against Rutgers, so the fact where he once he read that Rachel was just giving the ball off to the running backs, he would just bust through the line and meet a Rutgers running back and throw him to the ground. I think that opens up also the spy option for Michael Jones to spy Malik Willis on a good number of plays. And I think that's going to be one of the most interesting matchups that college football isn't ready for because both of them, the way that they're shaping up to be in their careers, we know Willis is going to be a top NFL draft pick, but Mike Hill was slowly working his way up that ranking as well. And a game like this could be very interesting to see where he goes.
Yeah, it's funny that the Shedro Lewis that slashed us last year for like 170 yards. Um,
He's like their third string running back, right?
Yeah, last week he had 7 carries for 16 yards. And Josh Mack, who's from Rochester, had 13 for 47. They have
Josh
like a
Mack
stable
didn't play in the game
of running
last
backs.
year.
No, he didn't. So I don't know. We don't know what we're up against except for from who they've played, that's effectively all of them playing like we did against Albany. So what we're going to see next week is kind of a mystery, and I'm sure later in the week John and Dan will touch on that and figure out what in the hell we're up against outside of just staring at Malik Willis's picture and saying, how do we stop this guy? So,
well, I can guarantee you what we will have is we will have Hugh Freeze on the sideline. So it will officially be 2 games on the sideline and only 1 in the hospital bed. So
there's not a place in the Carrier Dome where you can put a hospital bed in any of those suites.
No.
Competitive advantage for the Orange.
Well, one thing I want to touch on before we move on, the big thing about Syracuse and why they've had so much struggle against running quarterbacks is because, as we know in the past, Syracuse tackles guys like they're trying to tackle guys on fire. They just decide not to. And the fact that Syracuse's tackling this year has been just so much improved, just up and down the field, gives me hope that that helps as well, because it's always been with quarterbacks, it's them running around to the outside, making a guy miss, or a guy just flat out missing a tackle because he decides to put in the softest tackle in the world against a running quarterback. I think that the improved tackling helps a lot as well with taking down Willis if he decides that he wants to run.
Yeah, in general, I think that this could end up being probably the most interesting game of Syracuse this season because, gentlemen, I don't know if you got to watch any other football that took place on Saturday, but boy, the ACC is not looking good. Florida State lost to Wake Forest. Miami lost to Michigan State. Pitt lost to our old friend Tim Lester and Western Michigan. The ACC has not looked good this year in any non-conference matchups. They really haven't looked good playing against each other. Clemson barely eked out a win over Georgia Tech team that is very bad based off of their losses that they came into this game with. The ACC is an absolute pile of mediocrity on its best day, and on its worst day, it looks a lot like Syracuse fits right in with that group. And I'm just curious, because I know Steve's the eternal optimist, and he was the one that wrote the preview that had Syracuse losing to Rutgers and still making the season salvageable. Did you foresee this happening, or does this just play into your predestined joke of a narrative a little too conveniently?
Totally called it. It was. This is exactly as I foresaw it. It's fine. This is exactly what I was expecting when I said 6-6.
Yeah.
No. This is
complete. Which timeline did you see that happening in?
Yeah, there were 14 million, and this is the one.
Oh, go congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just I talked to Max Mang, the Sorcerer Supreme, confirmed that this is the timeline.
Okay.
So
Louisville is the only team that actually kind of took care of business against UCF, and they won by a touchdown.
And that game was stupid among many levels of stupid.
so
We had,
ACC is peak dumb football this year.
yeah,
I didn't think I'd be tweeting this as a dumb game, as many times as I've already tweeted out, and that was just for Syracuse football.
Right.
it's
Crazy.
and you know what the terrifying part is that this upcoming week 4, we're going to see even more stupid because
Oh, I am ready for more stupid. Hit me.
Friday night we have Syracuse and Liberty, naturally 8 p.m. ACC network. But at 7 o'clock, going on concurrently, is a Virginia team that just got stomped by UNC against Wake Forest, which means that Wake Forest coming in 3-0 is probably going to lose to Virginia 3-0. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Missouri plays Boston College. Clemson goes to NC State, which is the game where we figure out if NC State's going to be a thing or not, because if Georgia Tech can hang with Clemson, you probably should be able to. The aforementioned North Carolina goes to Georgia Tech, and Kansas, a team that everybody thought was bad and might actually have something this year, goes to Duke.
Oh, that is going to be what we call a barn burner.
There's a really good chance that the ACC continues to get more stupid this week. And I want Syracuse fans to pay attention to this because I do think that a lot of us, Steve, Christian, were a little bit pessimistic going into this year because we thought the ACC had a certain, not consistency, but we thought that at least everybody would be at this level. I'm really waiting for the moment where like 70 to 90 is like all of the SEC teams, ACC teams, and SP+. Like they're all just going to live in this area of meh.
Yeah.
I mean, the ACC is consistent this year. We just didn't expect it to be consistently high flaming piles of garbage.
Right, exactly. Like we were thinking, levels of mediocrity, like high end of mediocrity, not the shit end that we're seeing. So it'll be weird to see how it all pans out at the end because we're not even into. I mean, yeah, a couple ACC games have gone off, but we're not even into the heart of it where they're all beating up on each other, which is going to be even dumber.
It's incredible. Our first game is Florida State, and that actually now looks like a winnable game.
Very.
Yeah, Mike Norvell has not done a good job with that program, and their offensive line looks worse than ours, which is not something that I thought I'd say 3 years after we already had this conversation about their offensive line looking worse than ours. Like, this has been a consistent theme for the last,
It's
3 or 4
2018
meetings?
all over again.
Jesus. I don't know
Because
how.
that 2018 offensive line was special for many reasons, and special in a good way was not one of them.
Yeah, it's a shame too. Like how Florida State has fallen to where they are, and I'm gonna say this, and then they're gonna rack like 50 up this week, and then come in
Naturally.
guns a blazing to our game. But it's like watching them is just not. I mean, this is the same program that they, what was the movie they wrote about them? It was long before both of you were born. Never mind.
Yep, I was. Nope.
Nope.
Yeah.
I'm just so ready to see dumb, bad 2018 Florida offensive line again, because that
Against this Syracuse front.
that 2018 Florida State offensive line
The
was
program.
so bad.
The program
And
was about Florida State, by the way.
It was in a special way that they were so bad. Like, there's no great scale to tell them how specially bad that team was.
No.
And this team might be worse. Somehow, some way, they're trying. Which means that Syracuse will make them look good for 1 week.
Yep. So.
And there is no Cam Akers to take direct snaps and just play quarterback, which I do think we don't talk about enough, that Florida State was doing so bad against Syracuse that they decided to just stop trying to play quarterback, put the running back at quarterback, and said just run forward. And
Yeah, and it worked.
Yeah.
You know what? We should try that with Sean Tucker.
Not the worst idea I've heard. Okay.
No.
Time to jet ski. Try to scheme up a Wildcat piece for this week. Wonderful.
I thought you were gonna say time to jet ski, and I was like, this is an
Yeah,
awkward time to go jet skiing.
No. I was gonna say like jets. Like I was thinking like in Madden on the Wildcat, you can just
I mean,
jet
Steve
ski
knows.
it, but
Yep.
like that could work too with Taj.
Yeah.
Why
There
not?
you go.
I mean, Steve knows that Syracuse has a hidden Rhino Wildcat playbook somewhere. Just replace Rhino with Tucker, and then bam, step 2 question mark question mark question mark, step 3 profit.
Exactly.
I like it.
There's no way we can fail with that.
Well, while we're on the topic of really stupid things, we should talk about the Syracuse men's soccer game that took place this week.
Yeah.
That's my recap of it. Steve, would you like to add some more words?
No, you nailed it. So so for anyone who didn't see, Cuse hosted Louisville up at SU Soccer Stadium on Friday. It was a strange game. In the first half, it was 2-2, all 4 goals coming on penalties. The the second half opened up completely, and like I don't know what, they just kept throwing haymakers at each other. Dumb game all around. We're the dumb ACC is bleeding into other sports at this point, it seems.
We're staying very on brand. Very on brand. Doc Ross would be proud.
Yep. So Cuse held Louisville in check. Is it Sander Reed? I can never remember how they actually pronounce it, but they're stud in check for most of the game, and then he assisted on the game-winning goal in the 103rd minute. Because why not? Because college soccer plays sudden victory, or sudden whatever. It's sudden death
Golden
overtime.
goal.
Yeah, there
Golden
you go.
goal.
We'll go with golden goal. So Louisville ended up, netting one in the 102nd, and unfortunately, Cuse didn't have a chance to answer because for some reason college still plays by that stupid rule. The way this game had gone, Syracuse would have answered, and then there would have been more goals, and probably would have finished like 7-7. So, overall, a hell of a game. Kerr netted 2. Only downfall is after his second penalty, he did come off. Didn't see the field again. I don't know if there's been any update on his injury. Hopefully, it's not too bad. I think that was his 3rd on the year.
Rumor around the mill was hamstring.
That's never good for a soccer player. So hopefully,
But that's just rumor. That's not confirmed.
All right, we're here for the scuttlebutt. Thankfully, we have Cornell on Tuesday, or at Cornell on Tuesday, then home against Duke, home against UVA next weekend. So we'll see if somewhere in there we can, get him a little rest and get that hammy back to full strength.
Play UVA again? Oh.
Oh no, UVA.
No, that's Vermont.
Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna say different. V school.
Yep. UVM, not UVA. Got it. And then at Pitt. So. Oh, and then Christian, it's gonna be your favorite game. They're hosting Colgate.
Yeah.
On October 5th.
The fact that Christian is now engrossed into the world of college soccer means that this podcast will very slowly dissolve into a pure football talk. But which football you're going to get, who knows?
I mean, hell, it could just devolve into a complete Ted Lasso podcast for all I care.
Yeah.
Which also claps right now. Ted Lasso has already won 2 Emmys for Best Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series, Best Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series. It had to have been Roy Kent. The Roy Kent chant was trending on Twitter for a hot moment.
Very nice. Very nice.
It's still my favorite fake soccer song to ever be written.
Yep, 100%.
Which is fantastic. Yeah,
we would have to mark this not safe for
Brett
work
Goldstein.
if we started chanting it. We would have to mark this NSFW, but yeah, go check it out.
Is, I think his last name is Goldstein or
it's Goldstein.
Something.
Yep.
Yeah, he's first time Emmy win, and then Hannah, the Water something, whose last name I always forget. But the owner of Ted Lasso was the supporting actress. So
Ooh,
they're up for like.
Fun fact was also the Shame woman from Game of Thrones.
Yeah. So this is her first. This is her first Emmy for somehow. So cool. Ted Lasso's doing great. If you guys haven't watched this week's episode, it is wonderfully trippy and weird, and I really hope that you get to it.
Oh, I was all in for that one. And if any of our listeners are not listening to Ted Lasso, stop listening to us. I will tell you this flat out, and go start it, because even if you don't care one iota about soccer, my wife couldn't care less. It's her favorite show on television.
Same
It's
here.
just well written. It's perfect.
And you'll learn soccer.
Yeah.
A plot point of the show is that a team bunkers against Tottenham. Tottenham does dumb things, and then they win the game. That's the most realistic soccer knowledge that you could possibly ever drop.
Remember, you're learning soccer along with Ted Lasso. Look at it as an interactive experience.
Yep. Absolutely. Or you could just pull a Chelsea and throw 3 up on them like today.
I was gonna say, well, if you want to learn about Syracuse football in an interactive experience, we're here every Sunday night at 8 p.m. to talk about Syracuse football. We're gonna be here on Twitch for the rest of the season. I think we really like it. It's easier for us to remember the link. It's easier for us to send out to people to watch.
And it's easier for me on all ends.
So we're gonna stay on Twitch.
No longer do you have to remember what your Wi-Fi password was in order to figure out when we're going live on YouTube, or figure out what YouTube URL we're going to.
Exactly. So if you're watching live, thank you again so much for watching us live. We really appreciate the support. If you're watching this on Monday morning when the article goes up, thank you for reading NunesMagician.com. We're going to have tons of Liberty preview stuff out. We'll be talking Sean Tucker and 44. We're going to have Dino's quotes from the week, which I'm sure will get colorful, because I think there's going to be plenty of questions about quarterbacks and running backs and Hugh Freezes. So this seems like it's going to be a golden week of content. It's going to get weird. I hope we're all ready for it. Make sure that you still subscribe to the Nunes Magician channel. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe if you really liked us. Tell all your friends about us, and make sure you follow us on Twitter. We've got our handles up. Follow Nunes Magician for updates about when we go live for special shows, other things like that. And we're probably going to have some fun sponsorship announcements coming soon, so stay tuned for those. That's my spiel. I don't think we have any other spiels. Steve, stop spoiling.
2 things. One, because we are on Twitch, and because I am the millennial of this show. Everyone on Twitch, if you look below on our stream, or if you're watching on mobile, surprise, Twitch works really well on mobile, so you can watch this on your phone if live. If you get the Twitch app on the iOS or Android stores, you can hit the follow button below, which will allow you to follow the channel, and will also allow you to get notified as well if you hit the bell on Twitch when we go live for the live stream, or for any live streams we do in the future. Second thing I want to end the show with, John just put it in the Slack chat, Syracuse is 6-point underdogs to Liberty.
Well then.
Do with that information what you will.
Go Orange?
Go Orange.
Friday night, go Orange.